in the sea. We will bring you any further updates from that as we get them. But we move on now, and Chinese President Xi Jinping has met with foreign ministers and heads of standing bodies of the Shanghai Cooperation Organization in Beijing ahead of the SCO summit. Meanwhile, India's External Affairs Minister, Dr. S. Jaishankar, was among those who called on President Xi. Jaishankar said he conveyed greetings from the Indian President and Prime Minister Narendra Modi and praised the recent improvements in bilateral ties. This was Jaishankar's first visit to China since the military standoff began along the line of actual control in eastern Ladakh in May 2020. Jaishankar also held talks with his Chinese counterpart Wang Yi. Additionally, Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov also met with President Xi Jinping in Beijing on the sidelines of the summit. Lavrov conveyed best wishes from President Vladimir Putin and discussed bilateral political contacts and preparations for Putin's upcoming visit to China, where he will attend the SCO summit. President Xi praised relations with Russia and reaffirmed his commitment to further strengthen strategic cooperation with Moscow. Well, joining us to discuss these developments is Andrew K.P. Leung, a Chinese strategist who is joining us live from London. Andrew, thank you, as always, for joining us on the programme. Some significant meetings going on between President Xi and these foreign ministers. We know earlier as well, President Xi met with Anthony Albanese, the Australian Prime Minister. What's the significance of these meetings at a time of instability globally, not just on battlefields, but also in economics?
I think these meetings come at a time when the whole world order has been completely upended by what Trump is doing, not only to its perceived adversary, China, Russia, but on its traditional allies across the Atlantic and in Asia and other regions. Replacing the rule-based order, the so-called liberal rule-based order, which has brought great deal of benefits to the United States and the rest of the world since the end of the Second World War, and replacing them with rules of the jungle, focusing on American first and imposing Americans' will, left, right, and center. So I think that despite the long-standing rivalry and conflicts across the border, the line of actual control, both China and India are seeing this as an opportunity to, first of all, de-escalate the frictions, because these disagreements are unlikely to be resolved anytime soon. But rather than allowing them to escalate and poison relations and further stabilize the region, both countries see the need to open channels for dialogue, to resolve some of the differences, at least to stabilize the situation, and to seek areas for cooperation on regional security, on green energy, on climate change, on science, on a host of other things. And that's why it's important. It's not just bilateral relations between India and China. It's also taking it into consideration the changed dynamics around the world and in the region.
Yes, Andrew, just a quick question on the strength of the SCO. Of course, this comes in the wake of the tensions between India and Pakistan, two member nations. Also, allegiances with the United States with certain countries who, of course, have had conflicts and difficult conversations with both Russia and China, whether that's been the Russia-Ukraine war or trade. With those negotiations and relationships still teetering on the edge, is the SCO weaker as a result of that instability?
Well, naturally. I mean, we have talked a great deal about the war in Ukraine, and now the ongoing war, conflict in the Middle East, and of course not least in the South China Sea with the Philippines and Japan and South Korea, and of course the AUKUS nuclear submarine deal with Australia and the UK, and last but not least the Quad, of which India forms a part, with Australia and Japan part of the China containment policy. But in spite of all these dynamics, as I was trying to explain, the whole world's order has now completely changed compared with even a year ago, whereby the so-called liberal world order based on rules largely followed and by most of the world is now being thrown out of the window. And then the United States is putting pressure on allies and friends alike, and trumping American first, and hurting the sovereignty and also economic interests of its allies and as well as its adversary like China. So I think that in that situation, the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, even though it's in Central Asia, of course carries a degree of importance because it's in the right in the center of connectivity, transport links between China across the western part of China to Central Asia, linking Central Asia and the Eurasia to China's manufacturing and trade juggernaut through the so-called Middle Corridor across the Caspian Sea into Turkey. So I think that the Shanghai Cooperation Organization also, of course, are composed of the landlocked countries that are quite rich in natural resources, but what they need is transport link connectivity to export their minerals and finished products to the rest of the world. So I think that that's a lot of geopolitical, economic considerations involved in these in emphasis on the Shanghai Cooperation and indeed in the whole of the Global South.
Yes, Andrew, do stay with us. We're going to stay in the Indo-Pacific region and specifically look at China, whose Foreign Ministry spokesperson Lin Jian